She thought it meant something, but he never planned to stay. Office Affair Story, Reddit, AITA. Welcome back to the channel. You know, not all betrayals begin with secrets whispered in the dark. Sometimes they begin with small things. A shared joke in the break room. A glance held a little too long. A compliment that lands where it should not. In a world where we spend more hours with our co-workers than with our loved ones, emotional lines begin to blur. And sometimes people find themselves standing at the edge of something they never meant to start. Today's story is not about a villain or a victim. It is about temptation, about the quiet kind of loneliness that sneaks in even when your life looks perfect on the outside. It is about Isabella, a woman who never planned to fall into something she could not talk about out loud. And Chris, a man with a wedding ring on his finger and 1,000 reasons to be grateful, but still searching for something he said he was missing. This story doesn't explode. It unfolds slowly, quietly, until the truth can no longer be avoided. Have you ever found yourself waiting for someone who never promised to stay? Have you ever mistaken attention for intention? Words for commitment. This is not just a story about infidelity. It is a story about recognition, about what we allow when we do not feel seen, and what we choose when we finally realize we deserve more. So stay with me as we step into a story that takes place between coffee, breaks behind polite smiles, and ends in one of the most powerful ways of all. Quiet and final. Let's begin. Isabella never meant for anything to happen. She was just trying to get through the week, meet her deadlines, survive Monday meetings and Friday reports. She had been with the company in Atlanta for almost 4 years, always professional, always polite. She knew the rules, the unspoken ones. Don't get involved. Don't mix feelings with office politics. Don't let yourself look twice at someone you shouldn't. And then Chris transferred in, tall, calm, always one step ahead in meetings, the kind of man who never raised his voice, but somehow always got people to listen. He wore a wedding band, talked about his wife, but not often, and never with much detail. Their conversation started small, jokes in the hallway, a shared frustration over the slow printer, a compliment about her shoes. Then one day he remembered how she took her coffee. The next, he brought her one without asking. Harmless, right? But there's something dangerous about feeling seen. After months of invisibility, Isabella told herself it was nothing, just kindness, just chemistry. But the way he looked at her during meetings, the way their knees brushed under the conference table, the way her heart picked up when he said her name, it all added up. Quietly, carefully, until one Thursday evening, they stayed late finishing a project. Everyone else had gone home. The office was silent. Her screen glowed blue. His voice was soft, and when she kissed him, he didn't pull away. The next day nothing was said, but everything had changed. From then on, it was a pattern. A text in the morning, a glance across the room, lunch that turned into locked doors and hushed words. Isabella had never felt so desired, so important. Chris said he was unhappy, that Lena, his wife, didn't understand him anymore, that their marriage was more routine than love. And for a while, Isabella believed it, because it is easier to believe you are special than to face the truth that you are just convenient. But the truth doesn't stay quiet forever. December came, and with it, Chris's silence. No good morning text. No, I miss you at lunch. Just days of cold, weeks of distance, until one day Isabella saw it. A post on social media, Chris and his wife at a Christmas market. holding hands, laughing, like nothing had ever been wrong. And that was when it hit her. She had been a break, not a choice, a shadow in a life he never intended to leave. When they saw each other again in January, he smiled like nothing happened, asked if she'd watched the Falcons game. She stared at him, wondering how someone could erase so much, so quickly. And then she said it, "I can't do this anymore. No crying, no begging, just truth." Chris didn't ask her to stay. He just nodded, like he had been waiting for her to end it. And maybe that's the cruelest part of all, the realization that you were holding on, while the other person had already let go. That night, Isabella deleted the texts, archived the photos, and lay in bed. Not shattered, just hollow, because she hadn't just lost Chris. She had lost the version of herself that thought she was the exception. And in that empty space, something new began. Not joy, not healing, but honesty. The kind that hurts, but also sets you free. There are stories that hurt because of what was done. And then there are stories that hurt because of what was never going to be. Isabella's story is not about scandal. It is about emotional hunger. About two people meeting at the intersection of routine and loneliness and confusing comfort for connection. What makes her story so powerful is not just the affair. It is what it reveals, about how deeply we crave to be seen, in a world where we are constantly told to keep it together, smile, show up, be professional. It is dangerously easy to mistake attention for affection and presence for intention. Chris was charming, but he was never planning a new life. He was simply escaping the weight of the one he already had, and Isabella for a while became the space where he could breathe. But the thing about being someone's escape is that eventually they return to where they came from, and you're left standing in the middle of a storm you didn't start, wondering how much of it was ever real. The holidays, that silence, those pictures, they weren't just betrayal, they were clarity, clarity that hurts, but also saves. Because sometimes we don't wake up until the person we were waiting for stops pretending they were ever on their way. Chris didn't beg her to stay, and that says everything. Because when someone lets you walk away without a word, it means they had already said goodbye in their mind long before you found the courage to say it out. Loud Isabella's strength was not in ending the affair. It was in ending the illusion, in choosing truth over fantasy, in choosing herself, because real love, the kind that builds, the kind that stays, does not come in fragments. It does not come in hidden texts or glances behind hallway doors. It shows up fully and proudly and without hesitation. And if someone ever makes you feel like you are a secret, maybe a backup plan, let Isabella's story remind you, you are allowed to leave, even if no one asks you to stay, and that kind of leaving. The kind done in silence is often the loudest act of self-respect. Let us take a moment now to hear what the Reddit community had to say about Isabella's story, because sometimes the most honest reflections come from those who have loved and lost quietly, just like she did. Second chances. Lai wrote, "When someone keeps you in the shadows while living a full life in the light, you are not a secret because they love you. You are a secret because they never intended to choose you." 9,100,000 likes. That is a painful truth, but so necessary. If someone truly wants you in their life, they bring you into the light, not keep you hidden behind excuses and silence. The Glass Half Real wrote, "Being desired is not the same as being loved, and being wanted temporarily is not the same as being chosen permanently." 87,000 likes. This comment really cuts deep. So many people confuse attention with commitment. But Isabella deserved more than to be someone's moment. She deserved to be someone's choice. Unthreaded. Gratis wrote, "The real betrayal is not the kiss in the hotel room. It is the moment you realize they were never willing to risk anything for you." 8K likes. That line says everything. Love without risk is not love. It is comfort. And comfort can feel safe until you realize you are the only one risking something real. Whispers. And Windows wrote, "He disappeared for the holidays because he was never planning to stay. And she walked away because she finally saw herself clearly." 2K likes. Sometimes it is not about seeing them clearly. It is about finally seeing yourself, your worth, your value, and realizing that you deserve a love that does not require hiding. Platitudes. Quiet. Strength wrote, "Walking away without closure is hard, but staying in something that keeps breaking you in pieces is even harder. She chose peace over pain. That is power." Out to 6K likes, yes. Choosing peace over the chaos of unanswered messages and false promises. That is strength, and not everyone has the courage to do what Isabella did. These comments remind us that sometimes the most painful goodbyes are the ones that no one else hears. And yet, they are still valid, still heavy, still real. If you have ever found yourself holding on to someone who only gave you part of themselves, know that your healing begins the moment you choose your whole self instead. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to walk away from something that never truly belonged to you? I would love to hear your story. My ex invited me to his wedding as the maid of honor. Reddit, AITA Storytime. Welcome back to the channel. Have you ever tried to move on from someone only to have them pull you right back? Not with an apology, not with a confession, but with a single envelope. What if that envelope had gold trim, elegant lettering, and inside it, a wedding invitation? Now imagine that the groom was your ex, and imagine that instead of asking for your blessing, he asked for something else, something no one ever expects. He asked you to be his bride's maid of honor. Sounds insane, right? But for Emily, this was not a hypothetical. This was her reality. She had spent 2 years trying to heal, rebuild, let go, and just when she thought the chapter was closed, the story came back with her name printed on it. There was no screaming, no betrayal, no scandal, just a quiet kind of shock. The kind that leaves you staring at your phone, wondering if the world has turned upside down, because there's something particularly cruel about being asked to smile while someone else lives the life you once planned to have. Was it love? Was it guilt, or was it just another way to feel better about leaving you behind? Today's story is not just about awkward invitations. It's about boundaries, self-respect, and the moment you realize that healing sometimes means not replying at all. Stay with me, because this one is going to leave you speechless. Let's begin. Emily met Ryan during law school. He was the calm to her, chaos the planner. The one who packed extra pens while she ran to class with coffee stains on her notes. For 4 years, they built something soft and safe. They talked about marriage, about buying a house near Lakeview, about someday. But someday never came. Ryan wanted roots. Emily wanted time. She had just passed the bar, just landed a job at a major firm. She wasn't ready to be someone's wife. So they ended it, peacefully, maturely. The kind of breakup where you cry quietly in your car, but still wish them the best. 2 years passed. A few birthday texts. One awkward run-in at a coffee shop. And then, one day, an envelope arrived. Thick cardstock, a wax seal, her full name printed in looping gold script. She smiled. Thought, of course he'd invite me. We ended on good terms. But when she opened it, her breath caught, because under bridal party, it didn't just list her as a guest. It said maid of honor, Emily W. At first she laughed, out of disbelief. Then she read it again. It wasn't a joke. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Hi, Emily. It's Natalie. I know this is super unconventional, but Ryan and I both felt it would mean a lot if you stood with me on our big day. You're such a big part of his past, and I'd love to honor that. Emily froze. It wasn't anger she felt. Not yet. It was confusion, the kind that makes you double-check your reality. 10 minutes later, Ryan texted Em. Know this is weird, but you were the most meaningful person in my life. I want you there, not just watching, but standing beside us. He signed it with a smiley face, like it was some inside joke. Emily stared at the screen, remembering how she once thought she'd be standing beside him, as his bride, not as a witness to her own replacement. For 3 days, she said nothing. Friends called, sent screenshots, asked, "What the hell is this?" She stayed silent until one morning she opened her phone, typed a message, and deleted every word. Then she wrote just one sentence. If I mattered that much, you would never have asked me to do this. She hit send, blocked them both. No anger, no theatrics, just peace. That weekend, she bought herself flowers, took herself to dinner, and smiled, because healing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, like declining an invitation to a life you've already outgrown. Some stories hurt not because of what was said, but because of what was. Asked Emily's story is not about revenge or betrayal. It is about something harder to name. It is about being asked to witness the final chapter of a book you were once the main character in, being asked to smile while someone else gets the life you were once promised. And that is a pain that's difficult to explain. Ryan didn't cheat. He didn't lie. He didn't scream. He just moved on. And in the process, he forgot that closure isn't a group activity. You don't ask someone who loved you to help decorate the altar. You don't put your ex in a bridesmaid dress and call it growth. That's not healing. That's performance. Some people, in their attempt to make peace, only reopen wounds that were already trying to close. What Natalie asked was not kindness. It was convenience. And what Ryan offered was not a gesture of respect. It was a deeply misread sense of emotional entitlement. Because no matter how mature a breakup was, no matter how gentle the ending, it does not give you the right to make someone stand in the audience of a life they once thought they'd be living. What makes Emily's choice so powerful is not that she said no, but that she said it without needing to explain, because real strength is sometimes just one sentence and a quiet block button. We are conditioned to believe that closure comes through conversation, that if we explain ourselves well enough, others will understand our pain. But the truth is, closure rarely comes from someone else. It comes from clarity. And Emily saw it clearly. She was not being honored. She was being handled. And when someone tries to decorate their guilt with your presence, you are allowed to walk away, even if it makes them uncomfortable, even if they don't understand, because your peace does not require their permission. Now let us take a moment to hear what the Reddit community had to say. Because sometimes it is not just about the story. It is about how many people silently carry the same ache. And in the comments, we often find reflections of what we have been too afraid to say out loud. Sure, after the Echo wrote, inviting your ex to be your maid of honor is not maturity. It is emotional theater disguised as growth. 8K likes. That is so perfectly said. Because true maturity does not demand presence. It respects distance, especially when it comes to people we once loved. You silent. Applause wrote, "Closure is not when they say sorry. Closure is when you stop hoping they will act like the person you once believed they were." AITA 2K likes. This hits deep. Emily didn't wait for an apology. She chose her peace over a polite performance. And that is a kind of strength we often overlook. Almost. The bride wrote, "Being asked to dress up for someone else's happy ending while you're still holding pieces of the past is not healing. It is humiliation." 9 4K likes. Sometimes people call it inclusion, but what it really is discomfort dressed in a pretty dress. No one should be expected to smile through their own heartbreak. Saw letters. Never Sent wrote, "The invitation was not about honoring her. It was about making themselves feel better about the way they left her behind." 7 likes. And that is a hard truth. Some gestures are not kind, they are convenient, and they only serve the people making them. Although, Real Grace wrote, "You are not petty for saying no. You are powerful for protecting the part of you that once believed this was your future." 10 likes. I love this comment, because too often we confuse silence with weakness. But Emily's refusal to participate was not silence. It was a statement. These comments remind us that boundaries are not walls. They are doors we choose to close, to protect what we have rebuilt inside. If someone ever tries to make you a character in a story you have already walked away from, you are allowed to close the book. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever been asked to play a role in someone else's ending when you were still grieving the part you played in their beginning? I would love to hear your story. He gave me a key to his life, but it was never mine. Reddit story time. Welcome back to the channel. They say real heartbreak doesn't always come with raised voices or shattered glass. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in a perfectly planned weekend, in the warmth of someone's arms, in the exact moment you believed this might finally be your forever. Today's story is about Samantha, a woman who thought she had found love, thought she had found safety. And then, in one blink, she realized she was living someone else's story. This isn't a story about betrayal in the way we usually hear it. There was no suspicion, no warning signs, no red flags fluttering in the wind. It was the opposite. Everything felt calm, real, until she held a key in her hand and thought, "This means I belong here," only to discover she was holding a copy to a door that already had someone on the other side. Have you ever loved someone so sincerely, so openly, that you forgot to question what they were hiding? Have you ever looked back, not at what they did, but at how well they made? You believe it wasn't happening. Today's story is not just about lies. It's about awakening. The moment when the fog lifts and you see exactly where you were standing. Not on the edge of a new beginning, but in the middle of someone else's life. This story will break something in you, but maybe it will also remind you that walking away in silence can be louder than any confrontation. Let's begin. Samantha met Tyler on a rainy afternoon in San Diego. She had just spilled her coffee. He offered her a napkin. Their hands brushed. And somehow, in a city of millions, they found each other. Tyler was the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. His attention was steady, his laughter easy. His words always seemed to land exactly where Samantha needed them most. In a world full of half-hearted messages and ghosted conversations, Tyler felt like an anchor. For 6 months, they built something that felt solid. Beach walks at sunset, random road trips, movie nights that turned into falling asleep on the couch. Tyler was present, attentive, real, or so she thought, when he suggested a weekend getaway to Big Sur. Samantha thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the moment where life stops feeling temporary. They drove up the winding coast, windows down, music playing, her hand resting on his knee. It felt effortless, like a movie. That evening, he took her to a cliff overlooking the ocean. The wind tangled her hair. The sky bled into gold and orange. And then he reached into his pocket. Samantha's heart raced. Was this it? Was this where he would kneel down? Ask the question she wasn't sure she was ready to hear, but so desperately wanted to. Instead, he pulled out a key. "To my new place," he said, smiling. "I want you to be part of it." Samantha laughed, half from relief, half from joy. A key meant permanence, a future. That night, they drank wine on the balcony of their cabin. He talked about paint colors, about getting a dog, about all the tomorrows waiting for them. It was perfect. Until it wasn't. Around midnight, Tyler fell asleep, phone buzzing again and again. At first, Samantha smiled, annoyed, thought it was work. Then curiosity crept in. She picked up the phone. Saw the name E. Her heart sank. Message after message. "Please come home. I can't believe we fought again. I love you. Happy 1 year, baby." Samantha scrolled in horror. Photos of trips. Anniversaries. Birthday dinners. Not as casual. Fling. A relationship. A serious, ongoing relationship. She stared at Tyler, sleeping. Peaceful, untroubled. And she realized she wasn't moving into a life they had built together. She was moving into someone else's. Samantha didn't throw the phone, didn't wake him. She packed her bag, slowly, quietly, left the cabin before sunrise, drove back down the coast, alone, no music, no tears, just silence. A week later, she mailed the key back to Tyler's office. No note, no explanation, just a scrap of paper with 12 words. "Give this to the woman who already lives there. I was just borrowing her future." There are betrayals that shatter you in a moment. And then there are betrayals that slip in quietly, like fog under a locked door. Samantha's story was not about the crash. It was about the slow realization that the future she had been building was never really hers. It is a special kind of cruelty when someone invites you into a life they never planned to give you. Tyler did not just lie with his words, he lied with his silences, his smiles, his promises painted in soft colors, because deception is not always a sharp knife. Sometimes it is a gentle hand, pulling you deeper into the dark. What makes this story so powerful is not just the shock of discovery. It is Samantha's response. No screaming, no confrontation, just a quiet packing of her things. A closing of a door. A silent goodbye to a life she realized was never meant for her, and that takes a kind of strength that not everyone understands. We are taught to believe that healing comes after closure, that there must be answers, apologies, final words. But sometimes closure is not something you get from another person. It is something you give to yourself, in the way you choose not to fight for explanations, in the way you walk away with dignity, with clarity, without looking back. Samantha could have stayed. She could have demanded apologies, could have screamed and cried. But she chose silence. Not because she was weak, but because she knew that nothing he could say would make her any less broken or any more whole. Some doors are better left unopened. Some questions are better left unanswered. And some futures are better left in the hands of the ones who chose them. Samantha's the story reminds us that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to let someone else's lies collapse without you standing underneath them, because you deserve more than being someone's afterthought. You deserve to be someone's only choice. Now let us hear what the Reddit community had to say about Samantha's story. Because sometimes, when the truth hits too hard, it helps to know you are not alone in how you feel. In these comments, we find not just opinions, but pieces of wisdom carved from real heartbreak. Who fading? Silhouettes wrote, "A key to a house already lived in is not an invitation. It is an insult." 9K likes. That is a brutal truth. A true invitation to someone's life does not come with strings attached. It comes with a place that is truly yours, not borrowed space. 2 words. Left Unsaid wrote, "You were not the other woman. You were just another woman he thought he could keep in the dark." 9. 4K likes. Sometimes it is not about being second. It is about being misled altogether. Samantha deserved more than to be an afterthought in someone else's double life. Whose Quiet Victory wrote, "Strength is not slamming the door. Strength is closing it softly and never looking back." 8K likes. This comment captures so much, because real strength is not in dramatic exits. It is in the quiet decision to value your peace over their chaos. Holding space. For Myself wrote, "When someone hands you a fantasy wrapped in beautiful lies, walk away before you forget what reality feels like." 8 likes. A powerful reminder. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is not what they hide, but how beautifully they hide it. Samantha chose reality even when it hurt. Oh, the healing kind wrote, "It is not weakness to trust. It is weakness to stay once you know the truth." Jantan 2K likes, and that is the core of healing. Trusting was never Samantha's mistake. Staying after knowing would have been, and she chose herself instead. Reading these comments, we are reminded that heartbreak does not define you. The way you heal from it does, and sometimes the quietest goodbyes carry the loudest strength. Have you ever trusted someone only to find out you were just part of their hidden life? Share your story in the comments. Your voice matters here.